Hui mai tātou ki runga I te kāinga o Ngāti Whātua Ōrākei I tēnei pō. Kāreroa ka tīmata I tēnei hui, māku I tīmata me te taimi harakia, o reira, nau mai, koutu mai, haere mai koutou ki murira, whakatau mai rā. To everyone, welcome tonight. I'm going to start us off with a karakia as for our panel, Dixon to our kōrero tonight. Tīkina atu rā te pipaki o ngā kōrero I te wānanga, tīkina atu rā te hautapu o ngā ariti. Kaupakatia e tāne ko wānanga, ki runga I enei kauira, kia koe te matapunenga. Maiangi te matapu I hoiho, ka whakamaua kia tīna, tuie, kai ie. Kia ora kākou.
Sometimes changing established systems like supply chains or budgets requires tough choices. What's the biggest compromise you've refused to make and what happens as a result?
Yeah, I think probably the biggest compromise we've refused to make as a practice is to back down on our stance on sustainability. And that goes to all the conversations that we have engaging with the industry. For example, we're currently doing a new commercial building using the new Green Star Buildings certification, which is really exciting, and looking at using a brick system, and was talking to the supplier about have they considered doing any certifications with their product, which is now a requirement under the new Green Star Buildings certification if you're going for those credits. She quickly said to me, bricks are the most sustainable product in the world. I don't need an EPG to tell me that. Slammed down the phone. On the other side of things, this can result in some really positive conversations. And I think a good example, again, of this, about a year ago, we had a conversation with South Drawn. Lighting is something that we really struggle with in terms of the upfront embodied carbon that's on the market in terms of lighting. We had an open conversation with them about kind of what they're doing with their products, what credentials they've kind of explored, where the data's sitting, and we were really stoked. We were in Melbourne last month to see that they've put it out, they've responded to those questions, and they've started to explore a new product on the market, which is on the market now, which is using bio-based materials, employing cradle-to-cradle thinking. So it was really cool to see that full loop. And, you know, with all these conversations, we collectively have the ability to change the direction of this industry.
Anahera, you work across public, private and iwi contexts. Where do you see the biggest disconnect between carbon climate commitments on paper and the outcomes that actually get built?
I think when it comes to decision-making processes, iwi usually bear the brunt of all these climate decisions and sustainability decisions that get made, and they're not usually at the table. So I think when we think about these systems, local, central, and even from an iwi perspective, you have to be at the table to be able to make meaningful progress in that space. I talked before about the community that I come from, and I guess we are firmly rooted in a couple of things: reciprocity, intergenerational thinking and decision making, and whakapapa, which is our kinship ties, our relationship to each other, but also to the environment. And I think if those things are firmly at the top of mind, and I know that they are for us, and for many Māori, I don't want to speak for others, but I guess those are some key principles in terms of the way we operate to ensure that we are good tupuna, we are good ancestors. And I think this is sort of like the challenge or the whittle back to everybody else, is that when these ideas are being dreamt up, is that who do you have at that table dreaming them up? Because from an iwi perspective and from my community's perspective, 1915 we had a sewage pipe planted right in front of our papakainga, you know, and so we weren't able to access our waters for food because everything raw sewage was going out into Ōkahu Bay. So I think that decision-making table, it was done to us, not for us. So I guess, you know, that's a bit of a challenge out there when we're operating in this space, is that who do you have there and how are you thinking about the decisions that are being made?
Rich, sustainability is still often framed as a cost or constraint. How do you challenge clients on the idea that carbon smart design means sacrificing beauty or ambition? Or does not, I should say.
Yeah, it's a tough one because you can't give people values, so when clients come to us with a set of values that are aligned with ours, then the project's really amazing. It's really easy, and some of our best work has come from that, and I think architects will find that in general, whether it's a sustainability issue or just a general issue, it's about an alignment of values. So the best you can do when that alignment isn't there, and I guess, Raph, you probably have a stronger sort of doctrine in your office about it than ours, but yeah, we'll do our best to try and talk about sustainable systems and the way that we can make buildings have a lesser of an impact on climate change. But it's really about about a nationwide, global sort of sea change, and what we need to be doing as a nation to confront, as a nation and a globe to confront this climate crisis that we're in. Yeah.
And what percentage of your clients do you think are sustainably conscious, and has that increased over the last decade and beyond?
Yeah, no, absolutely. I mean, everybody will say that they are until the checkbook needs to come out. So there's a sort of a spectrum that they're on, and some are at the right end of the spectrum, some aren't, and it's just percentage-wise, I don't know. I think it's growing. I think people are definitely moving in the right direction. So we're proactive. We've set our own targets as a practice to be producing 100% carbon zero buildings by 2040, and that's 10 years sort of earlier than the nation's targets and the global targets set by the Paris protocols. And so we're monitoring that and measuring, and we're spending our own money to measure benchmark buildings every year, and that's publicly available on our website. So I guess it's leading by example, showing what we can do as an architect, architectural practice for other practices to follow, but also for all of our clients to look at our website, see what we're doing, and we're noticing that there is a shift with clients' attitudes, and there bloody well needs to be, doesn't there?
Tristan, what do you see as the biggest blind spots in how designers and manufacturers are approaching embodied and operational carbon and wider aspects of sustainability? Where is the industry still stuck in old habits?
I think this is a tricky one. The operational embodied carbon are intrinsically linked, so you can't decouple those. And actually, I was looking for some good examples, and we've been working on the Living House with RTA, and one of the things with carbon and carbon accounting is it's an area that just moves so fast that actually you need expertise. So we were lucky enough, we worked with the Lever Room. Rebecca, I hope what I'm about to say is right, but really it's about actually understanding the impact of both. So when we published the carbon impact report for the Living House, we looked at 3 scenarios. So one was the embodied carbon of the building and that build process. And when you look at that on its own, it's a CLT timber building. It's really consciously using materials that are sustainable. And that comes as a carbon positive household purely because of the selection of materials and the mindfulness of that. When you then look at the operational, which was our second scenario, suddenly you actually have quite a significant impact on carbon emissions because of the lifetime of the household. You have a suite of appliances, you've got products in use, which is what we'd been working on. So we'd specified F&P appliances, higher air conditioning, and when you start including the electricity and the grid, suddenly the impact of those decisions is changed. And then in the third scenario, we modeled the solar PV. So we fitted the first demonstrator. We have solar panels on the building. And even when you consider the environmental impact of adding, the embodied carbon of panels, which are, they are intensive. They've got a significant carbon impact. Even replacing them after 30 years, you then again have that carbon positivity. So it's really understanding your brief and also explaining the impact of that. If you want an operationally positive building, but you make the wrong decisions in the materials, it has an impact. Conversely, it works the other way around. So it's really important, and just rely on the experts really as well. So we are not experts in carbon, so we work with partners. We've got a fantastic sustainability team with F&P, and we also use those external partners because they really know what's going on in the world. There's some fantastic work being done in those organisations, so just rely on them. I think that's the key, is the collaboration piece to address climate change. It's working in partnership with the right suppliers and the right businesses to sort of have those outcomes.
Raphaela, back to you. Do you think architects and designers sometimes overestimate their ability to influence change or underestimate their responsibility in reshaping systems for the future?
Yeah, I think you probably only need to look at the modernist movement to understand that architects probably need to understand the boundaries of their expertise at times. You know, the modernist movement is filled with many examples, Pruitt-Igoe being most infamous, and Charles Jencks calling it the failure of modernism, to acknowledge that architecture is not going to solve the world alone. But going back to kind of the original kind of statement I made around, you know, as a construction industry, all of us partaking in this, being responsible for 38% of, sorry, I'm going to keep reiterating this, just really drive home the point, of total global emissions. You know, I don't think we've got the luxury now to question, can we be doing too much? Can we be doing too little? We've all got to act with radical responsibility now to ensure that we're building for a better future.
Yeah, we often, I mean, everyone gets caught up with this drive for carbon zero, and I think if everyone tries for a carbon zero building, we're going to fail. So we often talk about the concept of carbon better. Any step you do to make a better, a lesser carbon building is a step in the right direction. If we all wait till 2049 and then we, you know, try and save the world in the last year, we're going to fail. So we have to be starting now to just incrementally pull back every single step, from appliances to transport to construction, and that's a really important point. I think carbon better, not carbon zero.
Just to add to that, it's also about, it's okay to make mistakes, but don't stay in the old ways. So modern methods of construction are so critical. The waste on a building site is astronomical. So we're looking at real ways to change construction, and we are seeing them. There's some fantastic systems out there. There's an evolution. It is right. There are ways out there. So being brave and actually trying, you're going to go a long way towards that.
Also, it's good to reflect back on the past and the way that we used to previously build. You know, back in the cave times, passive ventilation was our only option. So, you know, let's go back to first principles. Orientate the sun, only put windows where you need them, and windows that are sized appropriately to not overheat the house. These are just like basic, you know, the basic principles we're taught at architecture school, that will take us a long way.
I'm just going to add one more time, Rich.
Go for it. Add to it.
You know, this problem only existed, we all know this, post-industrial revolution. Every building built prior to the Industrial Revolution was carbon zero.
Can meaningful progress be made in a system rooted in colonisation and resource extraction? Or does it demand a complete rethinking of how we build and live?
I think there's some great examples of how Indigenous, I guess, solutions can work in the system that we currently have. And I guess we've had to work with systems for over 180 years. So I want to sort of sustainability, I'm going to talk about Te Mana o Te Wai. And so that's about how do you, it's changing your thinking from how do I receive benefit from that resource, but how do I allow that resource to replenish itself? What do I need to do to make sure that that awa can survive? Because in my world, and I guess in all of our worlds, you need water. And if the water is not well, you are not well. Te mea, te mea. And so I guess that's one example. And then if you think about the Whanganui River, which was given personhood, that's another example of how, I guess, mātauranga Māori and iwi solutions and values can be, I guess, brought to the forefront of the discussion around resources and how you treat your resources. And I think that's super important, and probably something like I was not brought up that way. I was brought up in the city, and we sort of take. So this is a little bit of a learning journey, not for, I guess, for lots of us in this room, for myself and my people as well. So it's like, how do you ensure that you're doing the most minimal thing to get the most out of the resource? I just want to use another practical example for those of us from Auckland. In Ōkahu Bay, which is our bay, my iwi fought really hard for like 10 years to get the moorings extracted so that we could have no boats moored in our bay. And there was a lot of kickback from people that own the boats, councils, anyone that had anything to do with the bay. But we worked with that system to ensure that now our resource is healthy and it's being replenished and regenerated. So I guess, those are the ways that we've worked with systems to make sure that we're getting the best outcomes, not just for us, but for everybody. And I guess that's our philosophy from our Māori perspective, is that when we are no longer here, our people will still be serving and trying to implement solutions for everybody that is impacted by the resources that we sort of care for and live with.
Manufacturers are often accused of greenwashing. How do you balance telling a compelling, credible carbon environmental performance story without over-promising or oversimplifying complex realities?
I think the key is authenticity, and the other's reporting. So authenticity is, we are on a journey. Everyone is on the journey. Like Anahera just said, we're all learning in this. There's no playbook. We can't go and read a book and it's solved overnight. So for me, I think as manufacturers, as just businesses, it's about having a plan, acknowledging you're on a journey, acknowledging sometimes you will get it wrong, and being brave enough to actually stand up and acknowledge that as well, and change direction. Sometimes you will change plans, you will learn more and actually need to change your direction. You spoke about that when you were setting up AHA. I think that's really the way to be authentic as a manufacturer, addressing sustainability. We have a huge footprint, but we do also have a plan. We're reporting on that plan. We have our carbon reporting. It's audited externally and it's available for people to see. So I think that's really the key piece is have a plan, make it visible, and be authentic about it, and put your hands up if you get it wrong as well. I think that's really important. It's true.
Looking ahead, what is the most important mindset shift needed to create a genuinely low-carbon, climate-resilient and socially grounded built environment, and how do you see your role in driving that change?
I've got the microphone in my hands. I'll attempt to answer that. Look, I think the circular economy is strong in my head when I heard that question, and and the work we've been doing with the Living House, I think has really helped us understand the potential power for that. And as an example, might be quite good to illustrate the answer. But so it's about sort of driving past every wharf in New Zealand and seeing a stack of logs being shipped off overseas with no value, and so growing those logs on our land, using our people to innovate technology to change those logs into engineered timber, having our people build those houses for our people on our land, is the perfect sort of example. And I'm not sure if that really answers the question, but I think it's talking about getting a shift, a mind shift of the nation, that we can't just be a primary producer selling our raw products, which we've done, for the first 100 years of the post-colonial sort of era. It's about adding the cleverness of our people to our products and respecting the land in a sustainable way.
For me, we have a role as educators. My plea is don't wait for legislative change. It's not coming fast enough. So our role as educators, as designers, as engineers, is to inform the public and guide them. So we can't ultimately tell our clients what they need to do, but we can guide them, and with the best of our knowledge, try and get them to put the right foot forward, right?
So if I think about what can we do, it's about being courageous. And actually, a couple of years ago, the last development I did was some kaumātua housing for my aunties and uncles. Now they whinged and whinged because they wanted what they wanted. But I guess what we have to do is be bold. And when you're in environments where the knowing is not knowing, I guess, then we have to be able to make the decisions so that on reflection, we can say we were good ancestors. We made the right decisions when we made that decision, when we built those houses, when we created our circular economy within our own papakainga so that we could trade up, trade down. We made those decisions early on because we realised, and we've got to think about the societal impacts when it comes to housing. In my community, we're not buying a house and then moving far away. We're buying a house and then we're moving back in with mum and looking after mum. And then we're going over here and we're living in the kaumātua houses. I mean, I've got to say I was a little bit selfish. I bought them really good because I can't wait till I can move into those old people houses and have all the benefits of living on a papakainga with my own cousins. But, I guess those are the types of things that we can do that I've had the privilege of being able to do, so that we have a better future for our whānau and our city and our communities.
It's already been mentioned tonight, but it's not waiting for government. It's on us now to take charge. It's in your hands, and collectively I think we can build a really strong and resilient future. I think the other thing that we're trying to educate kind of our clients on at AHA is that I think typically when people think of a sustainable building, there's been this historic idea that it's either this kind of hippie-esque straw hay bale house over here, or this really high-tech Apple Norman Foster chuck lots of PVs on it over here building. And at AHA, we're trying to demonstrate, and through the infamous words of Justin Timberlake, we're bringing sexy back to sustainability. So, really advocating that a good building, sustainable building, can be equally beautiful.
And that's us for tonight, guys. A huge thank you to our panellists for tonight and for their important perspectives. Please join me in a round of applause for them.